Okay. Today we will discuss about the acute appendicitis. First of all, we'll see what is the acute pain. Acute pain is defined as a recent or sudden onset of pain. This can be a new pain or an increase in the chronic pain. As far as acute appendicitis is concerned, the most challenging problem in all of the medicine is acute abdomen because the abdomen is considered as a black box. And you know what is the black box. If we see the appendix surgical anatomy, we see it is a blind muscular tube with mucosal, submucosal, muscular, and serosal layers. Morphologically, it is the underdeveloped distal end of the large cecum, that is the diverticulum of the cecum. The position of the base of the appendix is constant, being found at the confluence of the three tinea coli of the cecum, but there are various positions of the appendix at its tips. For example, retrocecal, which is most common, then pelvic, the next one, and the other one, pre-alien, post-alien, subcecal, and paracecal. As for epidemiology of the appendix is concerned, appendectomy is the most common urgently performed surgical procedure. The lifetime risk of undergoing appendectomy is between 7 to 12%. The maximum incidence occurs in the second and third decade of life. The male to female ratio of approximately is 2 in 1 that gradually shifts after the age of 20 years, 5 years towards the 1 in 1 ratio. Usually, the pathophysiology of the abdominal pain, pathophysiology of the abdominal pain, we come to know that the abdominal pain arises from the intra-abdominal pathophysiology, pathophysiological originates in the peritoneum, which is the membrane comprising of two layers. These layers are the visceral and parietal peritoneum, and they are developmentally distinct areas with separate nerve supply. Why I'm explaining this one? Because this will know us and understand us how we will differentiate between different pains of the. Now, the visceral pain is innervated. Visceral peritoneum is innervated bilaterally by the autonomic nervous system. This bilateral innervation causes visceral pain to be midline, vague, deep, dull, and poorly localized. For example, vague periumbilical pain of the midgut. Visceral pain is triggered by inflammation, ischemia, and geometric changes such as distension, traction, and pressure. Visceral pain signifies intra-abdominal disease but does not necessarily the need of surgical. The parietal pain. Peritoneum is innervated unilaterally by the spinal sphenic nerve that also supplies the abdominal wall. This unilateral innervation causes parietal pain to localize to one or more abdominal quadrants. Parietal pain is sharp, severe, and well localized. Parietal pain is triggered by irritation of the parietal peritoneum by an inflammatory process, or it may be by the mechanical stimulation, such as surgical incision. Parietal pain is associated with physical examination finding of local or diffuse peritonitis and frequently signifies the need for surgical. If we see the neurological origin of the pain, the neurologically origin of the affected organ determines the location of the visceral pain in the abdominal midline. For example, foregut-derived structures, stomach and up to the second part of the duodenum, liver and biliary tract, pancreas, spleen, they present with epigastric pain. And the midgut-derived structures from the second portion of the duodenum to the proximal two-thirds of the transverse colon presents with periumbilical pain, while the hindgut derivative structure distal transverse colon to the inner one present with suprapubic. Then is the referred pain. Referred pain arises from a deep visceral structure but is superficial at the presenting site. It results from the central neural pathways that are common to the sciatic nerve and visceral organ. For example, biliary tract pain at around the right inferior scapular area. Diaphragmatic irritation from any source such as subphrenic abscess may refer to the ipsilateral shoulder. If we see the pathophysiology of the appendix, we will come to know that the appendix is inflamed by certain mechanism. Number one, the appendicular obstruction. This appendicular obstruction is the most common initiating event of appendicitis. That is why the hyperplasia of the submucosal lymphoid follicles of the appendix, and it accounts for 60% of the obstruction. The most common in the teen. In older adults and children, the fecolis is the most common etiology. Then intraluminal pressure of the obstructive appendicular lumen increases secondary to the continual mucosal secretion and bacterial overgrowth. The appendicular wall thins and lymphatic and venous obstruction occurs, which leads to necrosis and perforation with the arterial flow is compromised. How we evaluate the appendix? Evaluation of the acute appendicitis remains heavily influenced by the patient history and physical examination. Imaging and lab tests can help to complete the diagnosis and guide treatment decisions. The clinical presentation of the appendix, if we see the symptoms, there is a peri-umbilical pain with anorexia in 90% of the cases, nausea and vomiting also occur in 7% of the patients, and there may be a fever, diarrhea in few 10% by people. If you see the sign, there is a pyrexia, tender right adiposa, muscle guarding, and demand. Now we can differentiate the on history, the character of the pain. If it is a sudden and severe, for them in the biliary college, urinary college, and small bowel obstruction, radiation of the pain, for example here the solid circles are the primary and most intense site of the pain. Then radiation of the pain, here also you can see a shifting pain, for example in the appendicitis, shifting pain means from the primary site, the pain subsides and comes to the another side. And this is what I have told you before, that how the visceral pain and the parietal pain are different. Pain in appendicitis starts as a visceral pain and then localized as a parietal pain. On physical examination, we can also see that in the appendicitis, especially, there is a Murphy's sign positive. We will see this is not positive in appendicitis. We have to see the Murphy sign. Then, actually, the McBurney sign is specific for the appendicitis. McBurney sign is a pain that the patient points at the one third, lateral one third, and the medial two third from the umbilicus to the anterior spiraling spine. Then, if we see the patient may be tender and guards, there may be obtruder sign positive, Rubens's sign may be positive, and source sign. Then, on percussion, may reveal tympanic sound of the descendant bowel in the intestinal obstruction or the fluid wave that is the characteristic of ascites and perforation. Perforation is also useful in localizing tenderness and peritoneal irritation. We may ask, the bowel sound may be obstructed or there may be ileus. We have to perform a rectal examination as well, that should be performed routinely in all the patients with abdominal pain and testicular and stool examination. Now we come to the differential diagnosis. This pain, the percentage of cases of the abdominal pain coming in the patient to the surgical emergency. The non-specific abdominal pain occurs in 34% of the patients, and the acute appendicitis 28%, while the acute cholecystitis is 10%. Similarly, small bowel obstruction 4%, and all others these you can see here. As far as the lab evaluation is concerned, the complete blood cell count, we have to go for that. That has a 77% sensitivity and 63% specificity for diagnosing an acute appendicitis if the count is more than 10,000. We have to go for the urine examination to exclude any urinary tract infection. And if the WBC count in the urine analysis is more than 20 per high power field, or, the RBCs are more than 30, that's just the use. X-rays are less, very rarely helpful in diagnosing appendicitis. And then ultrasound. which has a sensitivity of 86% with specificity of 81%, and a large appendix can be seen on ultrasound and a thickened appendix with a cecum and small amount of pericecal fluid that you see in this diagram with periappendicular heart. CT scan is more sensitive than ultrasonography and it is required when we are unable to diagnose on the history, physical examination, lab test, and ultrasonography. MRI is an alternative to the CT scan, and if still we are doubtful, we have to go for the diagnostic laparoscopy. This is the table. This is given in your book. You can see this the differential diagnosis of acute appendicitis in children, adults who that remain untreated. No, there is a scoring system to diagnose the appendicitis that is called Alvarado scoring system. This is based on the history, examination, labs. There is a total of 10 scores. And as far as the symptom score is concerned, the migratory right anicosa pain and carrying 1 marks, anorexia 1, nausea and vomiting 1, and the signs, tenderness in the right iliacus has 2 points, rebound tenderness 1, elevated temperature 1. Similarly, the levity leukocytosis 2 shift to the left 1. So score of 7 and more is strongly predictive of good appendicitis, but if it is between the 5 and 6, we have to investigate further. And if it is 3 or 4, we will consider another diagnosis. Special features according to the age, for example, the appendix in the infants. In the infants, appendix is relatively rare under the 36 months of age. The incidence of perforation and post-operative morbidity is considerably higher than the adult patient. In the children, it is rare to find a child with appendicitis who is not promoted. Elderly, it will present with a gangrene and perforation more commonly, and in the obese patients, the diagnosis can be obscure. So in the pregnancy, it is also there in the pregnancy with a frequency of 1 in 1500. The risk factors for the perforation of the appendix are the extreme of the age, immunosuppressed patients with diabetic, people with obstruction, palliative appendicitis, and previous abdominal. The treatment of the appendicitis is surgical. We can go for the open surgery, laparoscopic surgery, and internal appendectomy. Medical treatment, if we are sure about we are going to operate the patient, or sometimes we patient who will go when we are going for the internal appendectomy, we will treat it medically, and that is by the triple therapy by ampicillin, flagyl, or gentamicin. So these are different pictures of the acute appendicitis. We are going to operate how we do the appendectomy. So you can see here where this is the appendix. Then we will go for the laparoscopic appendectomy. The problems encountered during appendectomy, for example, if the normal appendix is formed, this actually demands the careful exclusion of other possible diagnoses, particularly terminal ileum, macrogyverticulum, tubular ovarian causes in the women. If, for example, you are unable to find the appendix, then it is a great problem. It is 1 in 100,000. The appendix will not be there. If an appendicular tumor is found, now the small tumors under 2 centimeters in diameter can be removed by appendicectomy only, but the larger tumor may require the right hemiparectomy. If we found an appendicular abscess, then we have to drain the abscess in that surgery. Appendicitis complicating Crohn disease. For example, the patient has a Crohn disease and you find that have opened it for the appendicectomy. Now you have to see if the base of the cecum is healthy, you can go for the appendicectomy. If the appendix is involved with the Crohn disease, in this situation you have to go for the conservative approach. You have to treat the Crohn disease. It will recover itself. It will cure itself. Then appendicular abscess, you have to drain the abscess as well. Palliate abscess, you have to drain it. Now, if you found the appendicular mass, appendicular mass is the condition. If the patient condition is satisfactory, we go for the standard treatment that is the conservative optional sharing routine. But if the patient condition is not satisfactory, we have to do that at the first time, at the same time, we have to go for the surgery. Then, if the patient condition is satisfactory, we give the patient conservative treatment by giving the by keeping the patient NPO, by monitoring the pulse, temperature, and measuring the size of the mass, which is decreasing or not. This is called osteochondrogenesis. And the criteria for stopping the conservative treatment is a rising pulse rate, increasing spreading abdominal pain, and increasing size of the post-operative complication that can be that are the wound infection, abscess, pelvic abscess, pneumonitis circular, venous thrombosis, pyelophlebitis, pyelonephritis, and suspected subsequent